Moss is a puzzle-driven action-adventure game made by first-time developer PolyArc for the PlayStation VR. While the title's been received notably well, earning itself an 84% on Metacritic at the time of writing this, does Moss in fact have the goods to justify its $30 price tag, or is it more suited for the VR bargain bin? The story begins with the player embodying a Ghibli-themed no-face doppelganger called the Reader, and will find themselves in a somewhat J.K. Rowling-inspired library opening a book called Moss. Just several pages in, and the reader is consumed by brilliant light that transports him or her to the beautiful fantasy world from the book. Upon arrival, the thick forest brush is pierced by a fallen glass relic landing at the base of a nearby tree. Attracted by the commotion, a mouse named Quill investigates, and upon excavating the fallen relic is able to now see the Reader. Controlling both the Reader and Quill, the player must embark on a danger-filled journey to a faraway castle in order to rescue the adorable rodent's uncle, who otherwise faces certain death. The story of Moss is right out of a fairy tale and is likely to capture the heart of any gamer, regardless of age. As the player, you control both Quill and the Reader using the standard PlayStation controller. The analog sticks as well as core buttons are used to control the former, while the motion controls and trigger buttons are exclusive to the Reader. Each area of Moss functions as a page from the aforementioned book, and navigating Quill to the next area safely will often require the solving of light yet satisfying environmental puzzles, as well as a triumphant combat. Quill will often have to draw his cute little sword and defeat enemies to progress. The combat in Moss clearly was not the main focus of the developers, but rather a device used to add the element of danger while solving the game's mostly excellent puzzles. Sadly, the bug-themed enemies are few and only have one trick up their sleeve. One bug pinches, one hurls projectiles, and one kamikazes. These arachnid bullies can usually be destroyed with just a few strikes from Quill's sword, or can be possessed by the Reader if the player has the wits to multitask the two mechanics. While at times crippled by the limitation of the PlayStation camera, when pulled off successfully, there can be a satisfying rhythm to the slow but chaotic combat. It felt great as Quill was dodging the pincers of a beetle while the Reader fired projectiles from a possessed enemy at the onslaught of remaining bugs on screen. This game looks stunning and is easily one of the best looking PSVR titles to date. The world of Moss was an absolute joy to inhabit. Each of the game's areas function as a lovingly crafted diorama for the seated player to navigate through with Quill and to interact with as the Reader. The amount of detail that went into each of the game's areas is nothing short of magical, and the developer's laudable use of the scale in these environments makes Moss my new go-to for introducing friends and family to virtual reality. Unfortunately, all's not well in this virtual fable, and that is due frustratingly to the hardware limitations of the PSVR. More often than I would have liked, I had to deal with a jumping tracking issue due to the limitations of the PlayStation camera, and had to pretty much pause the game at the beginning of each area to recalibrate my headset, even though I'd remained stationary. Considering Moss is a game that was built to be played seated using the normal PlayStation controller, these moments were frustrating as they abruptly removed me from the otherwise beautiful world. Moss sounds fantastic. The enchanting music is accompanied by surrounding peaceful environmental work that both do a stellar job in convincing you that this magical world actually exists. Voice work, while limited to one narrator, is fantastic as well and meshes with the rest of the beautiful fantasy effortlessly. The world of Moss is truly a magical place that's likely to impress anyone who puts on the PSVR headset. It saddens me that at times it's not able to overcome the obstacles the hardware presents, and that like so many experiences available for VR, it felt like just that, an experience that ended far too quickly. I've heard the phrasing, up to 4 hours, frankly a lot in researching the title, and that's just simply not true here. Upon completing the title with about 90% of the collectibles, I clocked in at just under 2.5 hours. So, the brass tacks of it is that if you held the controller before, you're going to get just over 2 hours of gameplay for the $30 purchase. Personally speaking, I had a childlike response to the magical experience this brief fairy tale was able to offer. Now if that's worth the price of admission, well that's going to be up to you. As As always, thanks so much for watching the video, and if you'd like to see more like it, go ahead and subscribe.